The idea, the name of the documentary is Fat, a Documentary. I assume you're tracing this idea of when we had fat in our diet, we flourished. When we removed fat from our diet, we got sicker, we got thinner, or we got smaller, like physically. We didn't have as much height. And then probably stories, I would assume, of people who have reintroduced fat to their diet, to remarkable effect. What made you decide to do that kind of?
We do a few things in the movie. We tell a few stories, right? We tell the story of Charlie Abrams, that's Jim Abrams' son. The movie, it's a cold opening. The first person you see on screen is a toddler. That's Charlie. We have film of Charlie as a baby, just flopping all over the place. And then you hear a voice. And the voice is Jim Abrams.
I hate hearing that.
Yeah, well, you hear a voice of a guy talking, and then we go to Jim Abrams on screen. You still don't know who it is because we don't put his name underneath. And he starts telling the story about his son. And then he starts openly weeping on camera. That's how powerful the movie is. One of Hollywood's biggest directors and producers is crying on camera. A man who brought us more funny than anything you can imagine. Right. But we don't really start telling the story there. We just give you that piece. And then we go into the movie and we start showing the history of how we ended up here, right? I tried to keep myself out of the movie as much as I could. I come in and say, okay, here we are, and this is what we're doing, and this is what happened. And then I'll let everyone else tell the story. We show all the science that's been there for 100 years. We show the science on screen. And while we were editing the movie, I turned to Peter Pardini, the director, one day, and I said, Peter, I'm being thrown a little bit by the science. And I said, the reason I'm thrown by it is because we'll have Nina Teicholz talking about it. We'll have Gary Taubes talking about it, or Eric Westman talking about it. And then we'll flash it up on the screen, but no one's ready to read it. So I got two people to read it. I got Mike Dawson from the Adam Carolla Show to talk, to do some of the narration, and I got Serena to do the other narration. They're reading the history, and they're reading what was going on, and you're watching all of this happen at once. I don't do that thing where we go, hey, Aaron Farmer was a fat guy. And I met him in a truck stop one day, and now here he is. I wasn't going to do that kind of schlock. By the way, I could have done that movie. I could have gotten you. I could have gotten that guy Stockton, whatever his name is. Can't remember his name. I could have gotten like a half dozen of you guys that have lost 200 pounds and convinced the hell out of the world that, hey, look at these M1 experiments. They work. Instead, I showed the science, right? I did something that no one else does. I threw the science on the screen. And then I had, the Westmans and the Taubes and the Teicholz talking about it. And we address cholesterol, and we address fat, and we address carbohydrates. We address it all for people to see. And then we go back and tell the Jim Abrams story, the Charlie Abrams story. We tell the Gary Fettke story, because that story is so strange that you're sitting there and you're not believing what you're hearing, right? Exactly. And for your audience, if someone doesn't know what it is, the quick story is Gary still is an orthopedic surgeon in Tasmania who had to chop people's feet off from type 2 diabetes. And then he figured out, wait, all I have to do is take them off of sugar and put them on fat, and I can heal these people. Well, the government of Tasmania wasn't going to have it. They said, no, you just chop their feet off. What are you doing saving people? That's not why we pay you. Just chop their feet off, right? And they took his license away. The truth is stranger than fiction.
Right.
The surprise thing you're going to see in a movie, we were already finished filming, and Peter and I were already editing. And this woman got in touch with me. Her husband's a doctor, and she started telling me the story about her son, who is a type 1 diabetic. and how she started healing up her son, not healing him because you can't heal from type 1 diabetes, but instead of taking a ton of insulin, he was able to now take the slow acting insulin in just small amounts of it just to control his diabetes, right? He wasn't taking these massive doses anymore. And they tried to get her sent to a loony bin because they said, putting your kid on a ketogenic diet makes you a crazy lady. And turns out she's doing a documentary too. And I can't wait for theirs to come out. It was amazing what this woman showed me. And I said, Peter, we got to stop editing. We need to go shoot again. Amazing. We got this husband and wife, the doctor and the wife, to LA and shot with them. When you see that story, you're gonna go, my God, we're living in a crazy world.